Welcome everyone
Hi,
to
guys.
to AI Live. Gideon and I want to welcome you tonight. So we have a lot of great stuff to discuss. We want to kind of get through our housekeeping first, but we want to welcome you to AI Live. If you've never been here, this is like our Regis and Kathy. This is our free show that we can give back education to the aesthetic community, so that we can share a lot of things that we've learned and interesting stuff with everybody around.
It's for all of us to keep learning, keep growing. I mean, this field is constantly changing. We know it's the wild, wild west, and there's so much information that's out there. And for us, it's all about bringing on special guests, talking amongst each other, and figuring out what do we do with all this information? What are we doing with it? Where's it going? All of this stuff. I'm excited about our topic today. I think it's a super hot topic out there. We'll get into that quickly, but first off, let's do some cleanup work. All the amazing fun things that were coming down with aesthetic immersion over the next couple months. So what's the first one, Laura?
So we have a Temple webinar coming up on May 13th. This is 6 p.m. Now this webinar is going to be super interesting. People inject temples in different ways. We're going to show the different ways temples are injected. We're going to explain the anatomy. So we're going to go through all of this and kind of where the landmines are in the whole minefield of the temples. So that'll be pretty fun. What's next?
I love it. Next is our Foundations of Advanced Aesthetics course. It's a all-new virtual didactic. Spots are open May 17th. If you are around the area, we're doing live hands-on training here. Even if you're a little bit newer, or it doesn't have to be new, even if you've been seasoned and there are certain areas that you want us to help guide you to the next level, we're here to help you advance your techniques. It's called our Foundations of Advanced Aesthetics course, so check that out. May 17th is the first one of this, and then I think, and that's CME accredited too. I think it's like 18 CME units, so
it's pretty cool. After that, on June 7th, we have a biostimulant and biologic course. It's a virtual live stream event. So that means that we are going to be doing a didactic lecture explaining everything about biostimulants and biologics. What are they? What's the difference? How do they work? How do they stimulate whatever we want them to stimulate? And then we are going to be doing a hands-on showing treating patients with these biologics and biostimulants. So we're looking at like PLLA, we're looking at, or Sculptra, I can say that on here, it's not CME, Sculptra, CAHA, Radiesse, we're looking at PDGF, we're looking at PDRN, we're looking at Renuva. So there's lots of fun stuff we'll be doing on that live stream event.
Yeah, remember, it's a virtual didactic that you have to do ahead of time, and then we go into a live stream on June 7th that will showcase all of that. You can ask questions. You know, we want you to be prepared coming into it. That's kind of why we do all these virtual didactics, so that you can get the didactic out, let it sink in. If you miss anything, rewatch it. That's why it's there, so that when you're watching the live streams, you can really make the best maximum potential of asking questions of what you're seeing, how to work through things, how can you incorporate in your practices and things like that. So that's what this is all about.
Perfect.
Next is our AI webinar, Laser Physics 101. I think a lot of us are starting to play around with lasers, get back to lasers. Skin health, I think, is one of those things that's back on the trending aspects of it. And at least in my book, definitely skin is in. You know, we're starting to hear a little less toxins, a little less fillers, more biostimulators, more rejuvenatory things. Lasers fall into that category, and I think a lot of people don't understand lasers. They pick up a laser, they buy a laser, they get the one training from the rep, and they think that they know how to use the lasers. You know, if you don't understand what a chromophore is, how wavelength differs for a laser and choosing that, how spot size, fluence, pulse duration. If you don't understand any of these words that I'm talking about, this is the class for you. This is going to break it down. This is that webinar for you guys to really understand lasers at a foundational level, so you can pick up any laser, ask the right questions, so you know that you're choosing a right laser for your population, your demographics, and are going to make a lot less mistakes using your laser. So that webinar is going to be July 15th. So mark that on your calendars, July 15th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Excellent. Next one is going to be Foundations for Aesthetic Injectors. This is a new course we are offering. This is something that we want to help either nursing students or PA students, if you're in school or if you're working in the medical field but you want to get into aesthetics. This is the course for you to kind of dip your toe in it and see what you think about it. This has got a didactic session, and then we come and do an area where you can actually watch us inject and feel the jelly and kind of play with it.
Do some experiences.
Yeah, do some experiences. So this is something really, really nice and eye-opening for people who are just getting into aesthetics. That is going to be July 26th. So keep that in mind. We're going to do all kinds of live demos and fun stuff on that day.
Yeah. August 16th and 17th. This is very exciting. We're going to do our anatomy course. This is our cadaver course called Dissecting Aesthetics. We have the best of the best this year joining us. Julie Bass-Kaplan, as all of you guys know, will be here, as well as Dr. Julie Woodward, amazing physician, and they are going to help us host a 2-day event on cadaver dissections, live demonstrations, talk about social media, business, kind of a small little, you could say, mini conference in a sense, but focused on really the immersive cadaver and injection injection is going to be the main big part of this aspect of it. So I think this is an essential training for all injectors. If you've never done a cadaver course, or it's been a while since you've done one, this is going to be an awesome course for you guys. So August 16th and 17th, if you just want to mark it down on your calendars.
Talk about an eye-opener. If you haven't been to a cadaver course or a few of them, you need to do this. This is worth the money. This is worth every penny, just to see what's in there and to see where your needle or your cannula are going and what tissue planes it's in and how it's changing that tissue.
Yeah, for sure.
It is worth every penny. It is so eye-opening. So don't just plan on going to one. Go to a few, because there's no two specimens alike. Yep. Anybody will tell you that. Okay, we wanted to mention we have our mentorship. So we have a mentorship program here. We have 3 different tiers to the mentorship programs, and you can join at 3 different levels. It's either monthly or yearly fee. With the top tier, which is our founders mentorship program level, you really get a lot. You get discounts on all the classes. You get the webinars that are usually $199 are free for you. We also have a once a month, which is directly after this AI Live, a mentorship virtual call. So we get on there and we see all you guys and we chit chat, and we kind of we want to be mentors to everybody. And no matter what level injector you are, we want to be there to help you through any problems you're having, any questions that you have. We will always have a little learning there, something to kind of learn, educate you. And then we go through things that you are going through in your clinic and questions that you have. So it's really valuable if you don't have a mentor to bounce things off of. Yeah. That founders level is excellent. You also have access to over 450 educational videos, which I don't know if anybody's gotten through that yet, because it's a lot of videos. So every level you've got videos, educational videos to go through, which is awesome.
All right. So if you want to sign up for any of these things, check out our website, www.theaestheticimmersion.com, or reach out to the team at info or learn at theaestheticimmersion.com. We are going to jump into a amazing, cool topic. It's all about, rejuvenatory medicine, I guess. I think the biostimulation aspects of it, what we're moving into the field and really starting to delve into the science. We're talking about biostimulation, biorejuvenation. These are kind of the big buzzwords in the industry. A lot of you guys have been starting to play around with things like exosomes. They're starting to play around with PRP, PRF. All of these things have their places on that aspect of it. This is kind of our series of talks. Last month was an amazing talk with Dr. Jordan Plews. If you did not catch that was a great one for you guys to join and watch. We do have a YouTube channel that AI Live does go on. So if you guys don't know that already, afterwards, go on YouTube, follow the Aesthetic Immersion, and watch last month's our AI Live from last month. It was really eye-opening for me. It changed a little bit of the mentality and the mindset I had with regards to certain products on the marketplace as we're moving into the regenerative stuff. This leads into what today's topic is on PDGF and why we brought in Ariessence. And what we're really trying to do is really understand this whole where we're going with all of this. What's the science behind it? Of course, where are we with regards to utilizing this in our practices as far as that's concerned. And then I think after next month, we're going to do one on the cadaver course. We're going to bring Julie Bass-Kaplan, Dr. Woodward, and we're going to jump onto a great talk with regards to cadaver training. But the following month, we're going to continue the series on biorejuvenation, and we're going to talk and bring in something else that is more on the level of biostimulation, biorejuvenation. So, this is where we know that it's all about what we can do biologically, utilizing things naturally. We're hearing it. We're all on this whole wellness train, if you already not there. And so this is our job, is to learn for ourselves, but to hopefully take you along for the ride and really, really challenge you guys to see what's next, see what could be, what you guys can potentially integrate into your clinics. And that's where this is why we have AI Live, is to really, really bring out topics, bring out things. So, reach out to us as well, through Aesthetic Immersion, through any of our DMs, and let us know different topics, different ideas that you have out there, because this is our forum to kind of bring forth these challenges and these new exciting things that are coming out in our industry, and how we can potentially utilize them to our advantages.
Absolutely. So tonight, we like Gideon was saying, we want to help bring the why to you. We want you to really use your critical thinking and take these things apart. You look at exosomes. Where are they getting them from? Are they from plants? Are they from fish? Are they from roses? Are they from, old people? Bacteria. Where are we getting these exosomes and stem cells? So we kind of have to ask a lot of questions. How are they processed? A lot of these things you want to ask. We talked to Dr. Lynch, and we're going to bring him on right now. We want to know a lot about the Ariessence, which is the PDGF, and that is something that this is his baby. This is his baby. This is something he has put together. He's formulated it. He knows more about this than probably anybody around. And I know a lot of people are using it. I see this on Instagram. A lot of people are using Ariessence. And we thought it'd be a really good idea to bring him on and really help us understand what this is and how it works in our aesthetic industry, or in our aesthetic specialty. Dr. Lynch is with us now. I want to mention that there were some technical difficulties somewhere. We can't see his face, but we can hear him. So he is going to kind of go through a presentation for us and let us know kind of what's going on with it, everything about Ariessence, and here's what it looks like, the little box of Ariessence, and everything about this, and we're going to learn a lot. So Dr. Lynch, take it away, and thank you. We can hear you. Thank you, Dr. Lynch. We can hear you. I'm going to take this out. Okay, we can hear you, Dr. Lynch. Thank you so much. We want you to get into your slides so we can have you go ahead and start letting us know about all the tissue engineering, all the information regarding the PDGF, which we really, really want to understand. So you take it away.
Yeah, I had the great pleasure of being with Lori at Core Mastery over the weekend, and we were kind of talking about what kind of topics we wanted to cover tonight. And so I've questions here, and if there is any question that you don't see on this list that you really want to get the answer to, which I'm pretty sure that there is, just feel free to ask in the Q&A section. So I'm going to go about 35 minutes. I know we're kind of getting a late start here, so I'll try to make it quick. And we're just going to go through each of these questions. We're going to start from the basics of just kind of what are growth factors and why are they so important, and really what's the difference in them. And then we're going to focus in on PDGF and talk about what PDGF is and how it differs from PRP and PRF. And one of the things that drives me crazy is when, I get put on talk exosomes. I'm like, PDGF's not an exosome. And so, we'll talk about that. Then we're going to go into, just how does PDGF really work? What does it really do in the body? Why might you consider using it in your clinic? And then we're going to talk a little bit about what I just heard Lori talking about, which was, well, is PDGF FDA approved? Is it really safe? Are growth factors in general safe? Are exosomes safe? Mm-hmm. We need to really dig deep into that.
Are you talking about Ariessence specifically? Or are you talking about PDGF? Or are you talking about one and the same?
I'm gonna really focus my comments on PDGF, right?
Okay.
The same PDGF that's in Ariessence, but I wanted to keep this more of a CME kind of a talk, even though I know it's not purely CME. But I think, Lori, as you'll see as we go through the presentation, what we're going to start out talking about is what PDGF is naturally. So obviously that's not talking about Ariessence. Then we're going to focus more in on PDGF and specifically the PDGF that can be found in Ariessence, as well as in other FDA-approved products.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So
I can see it if you all can.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay. So just starting with the fundamentals, right? So growth factors, it's a major buzzword. We hear it all the time. But what is a growth factor and what isn't one, right? So first of all, you should know that growth factors are in all of our bodies. They are naturally occurring. And some of the main sources of growth factors in our body are in the blood platelets. And so platelet-derived growth factor is the main growth factor in platelets circulating in all of our blood tonight. So what are growth factors? And they're proteins, right? They're directly stimulatory for the cells. And so what do they stimulate? Well, different growth factors stimulate different things. So growth factors is not, one size fits all. Every growth factor is the same. They all do different things. So some growth factors stimulate cell proliferation and proliferation of certain types of cells. Other growth factors stimulate cell migration and migration of just a certain type of cell. Other growth factors stimulate what we call angiogenesis, new neovascularization. Other growth factors stimulate more collagen and extracellular matrix production. So they're all different. Some growth factors stimulate scar formation, right? So you don't want those. So when I hear somebody say, oh, more growth factors, different kinds of growth factors are better, maybe yes and maybe no. That's somebody who really doesn't understand the science, because you probably don't want to have growth factors that stimulate scar formation put on your skin, right? I certainly wouldn't.
Right.
So we need to know exactly what kind of growth factors we're going to be using. The only growth factor that's ever been FDA approved for tissue regeneration is PDGF. It's the only one. So here's a list of certain, several other different kinds of growth factors. None of them have ever received FDA approval for tissue regeneration. Next slide. Okay. And why is that? It's because, again, PDGF is our body's most important catalyst for healing. It's the most powerful growth factor to stimulate healing that we have in our body. It is one of the most conserved proteins in all of nature. And what does that statement mean? It means that the PDGF that we have in our bodies is essentially the same as the PDGF in all of mammals. Any mammal. So you can take PDGF from humans, and you can put it on a wound in a mouse, and it'll stimulate healing. You can actually take mouse PDGF if you wanted to and put it on a human wound, and it will stimulate healing. PDGF has been so important that it has been highly conserved throughout evolution over hundreds of thousands of years to help us heal. Because if our ancestors, living in caves, were walking down the path and cut their foot on a rock and they couldn't heal that wound, we wouldn't have survived very long as a species, right? Instead, we developed PDGF, platelet-derived growth factor, to help those wounds heal. It is also very important in embryologic tissue development. So in fetal development, PDGF is key to helping regulate and regenerate, or actually, in that case, generate de novo a human being, a fetus in utero. And this slide then naturally talks about, okay, well, when you get an injury, right? What does PDGF do? It's really, really, I mean, isn't nature like incredible?
Yes.
Because you have this most intricate drug delivery system that has ever been devised, right? So you've got these powerful growth factors, and specifically PDGF, that is normally present in your platelets, but you wouldn't want that growth factor just, floating around in your body all the time, right? Stimulating cells to continually grow. We'd all weigh 10,000 pounds by the time we were 10 years old. So instead, what nature has evolved is to contain PDGF and growth factors inside the platelets. And what happens whenever you get a cut? Let's say, you do microneedling or some sort of surgery, or you cut yourself in the kitchen, right? Or you get a broken bone. Could be, it's all the same basic mechanism of action. It induces bleeding, right? And what is bleeding? It's just when that blood vessel lumen has been disrupted, right, and the blood inside that blood vessel is allowed to see, if you will, is exposed to the surrounding what's called subendothelial tissue, like collagens and extracellular matrix and a lot of other proteins. And in that subendothelial tissue, the tissue surrounding a vessel, there are activators of platelets. So when there's an injury and the platelets see those activators in the tissue outside the blood vessel, they become activated. And when they are activated, they release the contents of what's called the alpha granules. Mm-hmm. And the main growth factor inside the alpha granule is the platelet-derived growth factor, as we named it 30 years ago. And then the PDGF, the platelet-derived growth factor, is the main catalyst that stimulates the healing process. So it stimulates the growth of cells. It brings more cells into the site of injury, into the skin. It stimulates the collagen and HA and natural extracellular matrix production. It improves the blood supply and it improves cell survival. It's anti-apoptotic. So your cells live longer. Okay, next. Unfortunately for all of us, as we get older, the level of our natural growth factors decline with age and also with certain kinds of diseases. Mm-hmm. And so, we don't heal as well when we're my age, which is older than Lori and Gideon, unfortunately, as we did when we were, 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, when we were much younger. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons for that, one of them, there are others, but one of them is a reduction in the level of growth factors with age. And then we also know that even within our bodies, from day to day, we have varying platelet counts. So, I use this slide often to point out some of the weaknesses, if you will, of PRP and PRF. Right. Because if you're taking PRP from, a 10-year-old or 5-year-old, hey, and they've got good platelet counts, hey, it's probably going to work well. But as Gideon was talking about earlier, if you're taking that blood from, your 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old patients, that blood's not going to have nearly as much growth factor in it as it did when we were younger. And moreover, and usually I ask the audience, how many of you do platelet counts before you draw blood to make PRP?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody.
Nobody does, right? And so you don't know what your starting material is, even on that particular patient. And if you don't know what you're starting with, how do you know what you're going to end up with?
And by definition, PRP should be 5 to 8 times concentration. Mm-hmm. So, if you're not concentrating enough, how do you guarantee you're getting any certain amount of platelets to get a response is more my challenge to everybody out there, because everybody draws out 10 cc's and they're like, I have 5 cc's of golden liquid, and I'm like, well, if you divide the math, 10 into 5 means 2, so you have 2 times concentration. You might as well just
let their own blood circulate
the
around,
skin, and you would have gotten the same amount of response.
Exactly right.
And this is like PRP. This is all research from 15 years ago. Like, we've come so far. I tell you, Dr. Lynch, I want people to. I want to have a centrifuge chucking day. Everybody throws their centrifuge out the window on the same day, because it's old technology, and I don't think people don't quite understand. They just don't want to get rid of their
the science
centrifuges.
behind it. Like,
yeah.
I think it really is. It is a great novelty, and the theory behind it, like all the platelet-derived growth factor, is there. There is theory behind it, but as you say, who actually is counting the amount of platelets that you're actually putting into the tissue? I mean, nobody out there is doing that.
Yeah.
No. Right. All great points, and I'm going to join in with your centrifuge chucking party. Okay, call me when you're ready. All right, next slide.
Next slide.
Okay, so how do we overcome these weaknesses, right? We know that growth factors are really important. We know that they stimulate healing and tissue regeneration. But how do we overcome this weakness that the amount of growth factors declines with age? And again, certain types of diseases and so forth. So what we did, and one of my sort of claims to fame, was to help participate in this, certainly among a group of people a lot smarter than me, was we set out to purify 99.99% pure PDGF. And it turned out to be very tricky and literally takes several years to do that, because you have PDGF AA, you have PDGF BB, you have PDGF AB, and you have PDGF C and D. So you don't just have one PDGF. There are multiple different kinds of PDGF, which we didn't obviously know in the beginning. Long story short, after a lot of years of blood, sweat, and tears, we were able to purify out PDGF, well, all the PDGFs, many of them, but we focused in on BB because it turns out from a lot of experiments, we know that PDGF BB is the most important PDGF, kind of PDGF for tissue regeneration and wound healing. We purified it. We found out the amino acid sequence of the protein. Once we found the amino acid sequence of the protein, we were able to make in the laboratory what are called probes to probe the entire human DNA, all 23 chromosomes. And we, after, again, another long period of time, were able to find the gene on the human genome that encodes for making PDGF. And then through some molecular biology techniques, we're able to precisely isolate, excise that gene, and put it into, in our case, we put it into yeast cells. You could have put it into some other kinds of cells as well, but we chose yeast for reasons we won't go into tonight. So then you grow the yeast cells up like you're brewing beer. And the yeast cells produce one, and I'm going to emphasize one, human protein. There's no other human component to this. One human protein, which is PDGF. And then you can purify out the PDGF out of a sterile pharmaceutical bioreactor, and you have pure PDGF. Now, this may sound kind of complicated and maybe something, scary if you don't really understand it. But I want to give you an example that I think will put your mind at ease. Up until maybe 30 years ago, insulin used to be extracted from pig and bovine pancreatic glands, right?
Right.
We used to get insulin to treat diabetes from pig pancreases. But for the last 30 years, 100 million diabetics have taken recombinant insulin every day, and sometimes obviously multiple times a day. Recombinant insulin made exactly using these same techniques. So this is not, it's not scary. It's not, all that new in the sense that, human recombinant insulin has been around for a long time. It's clearly been shown to be safe and effective. And again, in the case of recombinant insulin, it's just one human component, just the insulin. In the case of recombinant PDGF, it's just one human component, the pure PDGF. Now, right, we can make a standardized medicine. We're actually in the medical therapeutic space now, right? Because we can produce this using exacting pharmaceutical standards. So we know that every batch has exactly the same purity and potency and consistency and sterility, and is all endotoxin free.
Okay.
And better yet, for the providers out there, it's off the shelf and it's quick and easy to use. It eliminates that need to and centrifuge it down. Okay, next. Okay, and now, again, not only can we can make this PDGF any concentration we want now, right? What we have chosen to do through a long phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 randomized controlled clinical trials in the therapeutic space is to, do all those dose ranging studies, those dose ranging clinical trials. And the dose that we have settled on for all of our pure PDGF containing products is called 300 micrograms per mil, which it turns out is somewhere between 1,000 and 300,000 times the concentration of PDGF that you can get in PRP and PRF. Wow. So it's way, way, way more concentrated than you can get in PRP and PRF.
Awesome.
Now, when it's this concentrated, I just have a question for you. When it's this concentrated and you have so much signaling, is there a chance that it can lead to any tissue fibrosis, scarring? Like, you've got a lot more than what someone normally would have. So has this ever been seen?
Not to my knowledge, not with PDGF that's in either Ariessence or that's in any of the other 4 FDA-approved products. And there's a good reason for that, Lori. It gets a little complicated, but let me try to break it down for you. So what you want to do is to stimulate the receptors for the PDGF that are on the cell surface. So dermal skin fibroblasts, for example, have receptors on their cell surface for the PDGF. Now, once those receptors are saturated, so completely occupied, right, with the PDGF,
right.
You can't get any more stimulation. So I like to say, like, you can literally, if you could afford it, it'd probably cost you about $10 trillion, but you could literally take a dump truck and fill it with PDGF and put it on cells, and you would only get the same amount of growth of cells that you do here.
Okay. So you don't get an excessive PDGF signaling anywhere.
That's right. You can't.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. And we're going to come back to this later on another section here. So I think we've covered this. This is just, a quick summary of how PDGF differs from PRP. No specialized equipment, ready to use, no blood draw, etc. Okay, next. Okay, the other question that I posed, right, or you all posed really to me was, well, is PDGF just another kind of exosome, right? And I've already, half jokingly said, like, oh, that's one of my pet peeves, right? Because exosomes are extracellular vesicles. They're not proteins. So they're like a grocery bag, a shopping bag, right? The extracellular vesicle itself, I hope everybody knows, right, doesn't do anything other than carry whatever is inside it. Now, what's inside an exosome then could be protein, could be nucleic acids, it could be a lot of things. So, the question that, people they talk about, well, a billion exosomes or I have a trillion exosomes. But that's not the right question.
No.
The question is, what is inside that extracellular vesicle? Is it fruits and vegetables and steaks?
Absolutely.
Or is it, toilet
Trout?
paper and dry cleaner and, laundry detergent, right?
Right.
You need to know what's inside that vesicle. And unfortunately, that information doesn't seem to be readily available.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah. So compare, and then I would go on just to say, none of the exosomes that received FDA approvals, many of those exosome companies, and I'm not here to say negative things against exosomes, so I'm going to apologize here a little bit, but I just want people to understand the facts, right? Because there is a lot of misinformation out there. So none of them are FDA approved. I was talking to some, this has now been 6 months ago, but, we were just out really talking about PDGF, and they were, saying what we were saying was FDA approved, and they were like, oh, well, my exosome rep said my exosomes are FDA approved.
Oh, no.
No,
the FDA cleared maybe for topical.
Yeah, they're not. They don't have a full FDA approval as a cosmetic for topical use. They can be on the market as a cosmetic, but they're not FDA approved, right? And so I said to this provider, I said, well, go back to that rep and say, well, okay, give me the FDA approval letter for your exosomes.
Mm-hmm.
It's crickets, right? Yeah. Crickets. So then the next time that person comes in, they said, well, what about this? And they said, well, it's approved for, clinical trials. It's almost the same. Yeah. No. It's like, do you know, what percentage of new drugs that enter clinical trials actually get FDA approved?
Exactly.
A low percentage.
Very.
It's about 8 to 10%, less than 1 in 10. Yeah. And it takes 7 to 10 years. So the fact that these clinical trials may have started on this particular kind of exosome, that's great. I love it. Believe me, I love all the science and the clinical trials, but that still means they're 8 to 10 years from getting FDA approval, probably. And, they have probably a little bit less than 10% chance of actually ever getting approval. PDGF, on the other hand, again, is the active protein, as I've said already. It is FDA approved. The same PDGF that's in Ariessence is the same PDGF that's in the 4 FDA approved products. 3 of the 4 of those products have exactly the same formulation. In other words, the same dosing strength that's in the PDGF in Ariessence, in that little syringe as it comes in the solution, right? So same manufacturing line, same lot release specifications, everything exactly the same. The PDGF that's in Ariessence as it is the PDGF that's in the 4 FDA-approved products.
Okay, so is Ariessence one of those 4 FDA-approved products?
What's that?
Is Ariessence one of those 4 FDA-approved products?
Ariessence is not, right? Just the pure PDGF is the same.
Okay. So Ariessence itself, kind of like any other skin boosters out there, only has kind of an FDA cosmetic topical use.
That's absolutely 100% correct.
Okay.
So not supposed to inject it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay, next. Okay, now, I said pure PDGF is, of course, injected in other medical therapeutic spaces, right? So there's a product called Augment Injectable. It's a pure PDGF product, contains the same PDGF that's in Ariessence, right? That is FDA approved for injection. into the tissue, into the bone and the tissue, right? And because we have, and then the other products, there's two others called GEM21 and just augment bone graft. Those are indicated for surgical implantation inside the tissue. So, you're not putting it through a needle, but you got an open surgical wound and you're putting the PDGF directly inside the tissue. It's maybe even a more direct application of PDGF inside the tissue. Because PDGF is a injectable pure PDGF is an injectable or implantable formulation, FDA made us verify that it's endotoxin free, because as an implantable injectable product, right, it has to be endotoxin free. So all of our pure PDGF, including the PDGF that's in Ariessence, is endotoxin free. We did a little experiment a little while ago. It's a simple little experiment. It's not hard to do, where you can measure the level of endotoxin in other products like these exosomes or polynucleotides. None of the exosome products that we tested were endotoxin free. Some of them had up to 30 times the FDA maximum allowable level of endotoxin for an injectable or an implantable product. So, endotoxin, PDGF is endotoxin free, exosomes are not.
So do you, this is the multi-million-dollar question for you. So do you think that you want to take Ariessence to the FDA to get it FDA approved to inject, so people could do that? Because it sounds like the results are phenomenal in other areas.
Yeah, we actually are doing that as we speak.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yes.
Good. I know it's expensive. What is it, like $25 million? It's crazy.
It's crazy. I have a slide on it here in a minute. So if we can go to the next slide, and I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit, because I know, again, we got a late start. But next slide, please. There we go. Okay. So now, before we get to those FDA approvals and some of the other stuff more specifically and how much all that costs, let me just talk a little bit about how PDGF works in the skin, right? Why would you want to use PDGF in your aesthetic procedures? Well, first of all, I made some pretty bold statements, right, earlier. I hope you kind of recognize that, right? I said, PDGF is the most potent. It's the most important growth factor that we have. That's why it's the only one that's FDA approved, right? What is the data to back up that statement? Well, there's a lot of it, but I picked out just 3 peer-reviewed, published papers here to summarize for you tonight. So this paper shows that PDGF was the most potent stimulator of mesenchymal stem cell proliferation among 23 different growth factors that they tested in this study. Next slide.
Now, is this quick question? Is this PDGF BB?
Yes.
Okay.
And this study shows, and Lori, that's a great question, because this study showed that PDGF was the most potent stimulator of collagen and natural hyaluronic acid production in skin fibroblasts among 33 different growth factors and cytokines tested. And you could hopefully maybe see on your screen, I have a hard time seeing it on mine, that they looked at both PDGF AA and AB, and they were both, the incredibly potent stimulators. So you can get a 250% increase in collagen production, an 800% increase in HA production with PDGF in skin fibroblasts. Next slide. And then this looked at, what the different types of collagen were that were being expressed or produced, types 1, 3, and 6, and fibronectin. And again, this is a third different study. And in this study, they reported up to a 600% increase in type 1, a 2,000% increase in type 3 and type 6 collagen, and a substantial increase in fibronectin as well.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Next slide. Okay, here's a little skin histology for you. This is a wound healing study that we did looking at the effect of pure recombinant PDGF on wound healing in the skin. These were full thickness burn wounds. And we looked at 3 and 6 weeks, and on the right you can see the white circles are circles around all the inflammatory cells, and on the right column is the PDGF treated burns, injuries. On the left was treated with basically an aquaphor emollient kind of material. And you can see there's many at 3 weeks, and then particularly at 6 weeks, there's much less inflammation, many fewer inflammatory cells in the skin. And by 6 weeks, right, all that dark pink material, that's all new collagen and extracellular matrix. Whereas on the control side, it's still a bunch of inflammatory cells in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Next.
Love this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not sure if we can play this video. I don't know who's controlling.
Oh,
there we go. Okay, so these are mesenchymal stem cells that we've labeled with a fluorescent marker, and that little dark shadow, the pointy looking thing, is a needle tip under a microscope, and you can see that needle tip moving around, and we're expressing PDGF out of the end of that needle tip. And you can see all those wonderful regenerative stem cells are like flooding in towards the PDGF. So just imagine that happening in your skin, right? Where you're trying to get enhanced tissue rejuvenation and regeneration. The PDGF is acting like a magnet to draw in your regenerative stem cells.
Wow.
Next. Okay, and go ahead and click one more time, please. So, talking about cost of all these clinical trials, this is why a lot of companies in the aesthetic medicine space don't really go through the rigorousness of doing randomized controlled clinical trials. It cost us $100 million, actually in excess of that, to develop 4 different pure PDGF products, same PDGF that's in Ariessence, for the treatment of chronic skin wounds in the lower extremity of diabetic patients, for stimulating the healing of those, for stimulating the healing of oral maxillofacial surgery, bone, gingival soft tissue defects, and 2 products for stimulating, enhancing healing and orthopedic surgery. But now the importance of this for you all is that you have a product that has $100 million invested in the foundation, in the safety and efficacy of the PDGF, with over 5 million patients treated with it. And that should give you a lot of comfort, right? A lot of confidence when you start talking to your patients about using PDGF. Next. And this just is one example of a lower extremity diabetic foot ulcer treated with PDGF. We put the pure PDGF solution, just like the solution that's in the syringe in Ariessence, but we used about 10 of them, and soaked some collagen bandages and packed those into this wound. And you can see in a month, we had tremendous tissue regeneration, and then in another month, that wound was almost completely closed.
Great. Awesome.
Next. Okay, this one is now building on those last few slides, and this is a little bit busy, so I'll just walk you through it quickly. So, recombinant pure PDGF is FDA approved to improve healing and skin wounds in lower extremities of diabetic patients. In that indication, the cumulative dose is 45 mLs of product, 45 milliliters of product at 100 micrograms per mil. So that's a third of the concentration that's in the small syringe in Ariessence. That syringe is 300 micrograms per mil, so it's more concentrated. But obviously, that's a half a mil compared to 45 mils that is FDA approved for treating these chronic wounds. And I'm going to come back to the contraindications in just a second, but let me get through the indications here. GEM21, another product, is FDA approved for healing of gingival mucosa and bone wounds in the oral cavity in the mouth, not that far away from where we all work in the face, right? And that is the same half mil syringe that's in Ariessence is in that product. Exactly the same. And then the bone, and then the other indication is improved healing, again, in bone wounds in the foot and ankle. Now, in each case, I've listed here the contraindications. And there is really only one contraindication that really pertains to us. There's a few others like, well, you don't want to put it on osteomyelitis, right? And that kind of thing. It's an infection of the bone. But the one contraindication that's the main one, and frankly, the only one for the product that's indicated to treat diabetic foot ulcers, the only contraindication that's listed is to be used in patients with known neoplasms at the site of application. So in other words, and then just to look at the oral surgery product, again, contraindicated for in patients with untreated, this one blows my mind, untreated malignant neoplasms at the surgical site. And then the third and fourth FDA approved products are, contraindicated in patients with active cancer. So in each case, you're looking for known cancers at the site of application. Now, who in their right mind is going to put a growth factor product or any kind of a regenerative product on an active cancer? I mean, to me, that defies logic. I mean, I hope none of us would even think of doing that. But that is the main and really only contraindication to the use of the pure PDGF products is, hey, if you've got a known active cancer at the treatment site, you probably shouldn't put PDGF or exosomes or PRP or anything, right, on that known active cancer.
Right. And those of us working with skin, there are some providers who might not recognize AKs or might not recognize BCC or melanomas. So putting something, it's like putting fuel on the fire when you put the growth factors and you put things on that are going to cause that to be exacerbated or cause to be more dysplastic. So case in point, it's so important for us that are treating these people to understand what skin lesions look like and how to diagnose and question these before we do these treatments to our patients.
Right. Lori, I couldn't agree more with that last statement, right? I mean, you all are charged with making people look good and feel good about themselves, and that's so important. But my goodness, yes, when you got that patient in the chair, you should also be looking, for any sorts of skin cancer for sure.
One of the things that I do have a question, we're talking about cancers as being contraindicated in this aspect of it. For these, when I'm looking at it as an FDA approval, it sounds like you're treating some kind of wound, you're treating some kind a wound type of a thing. When I'm looking at this as far as something that we're doing, I want to be proactive with my patients. And so a lot of us are doing this proactively, long-term wise, microneedling, all these things topically and stuff like that. What are the potentials as far as somebody who is doing this long-term? Say we're using PDGF as my serum microneedling for 10 years on the aspect of it. Because I the fear factor a little bit is, these are contraindicated in active cancers. Is there a potentiation of cancer into the future with long-term usages? Because from what I see here as far as FDA, it's more about treating an actual problem that you have right now versus what we're doing is more biorejuvenation, biostimulation. We're doing things for long-term benefits as a proactive, preventative aspect of it. A lot of us are probably using it in that way rather than I'm treating you for a damage. You do it like a CO2 laser, we could throw it on, you're creating and doing this damage, but then if we're constantly using this is where my thing would be to see kind of long-term wise, what is the potential when I see something like this?
Yeah, because it's a really potent mitogen.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack in those comments, right? So let me just take it kind of one step at a time.
Okay.
So with, for example, the first product here to treat skin wounds, right? 45 mLs. You're using a half ml, right? So per treatment. Now, the half ml is 3 times more concentrated, right, than just like the other products are also 3 times more concentrated. So you got to keep that in mind. But still, my point is this is a daily application every day onto these, as you saw, potentially huge, large open wounds. Typically it'll take, and this kind of can vary, but typically it'll take anywhere from 3 to 6 months of everyday use to try to heal those wounds, right? So you're talking anywhere from 90 to 120 applications onto an open wound. So that's perfectly safe. Okay. Now, I mentioned before, you could actually, if you could afford it, take a dump truck load of PDGF and put it on cells, and you're never going to cause cancer, right? PDGF is not a carcinogen. PDGF is a natural protein in your body. So PDGF is never going to cause a cancer to occur. No matter how many times you put it on, for how long, it's just not going to happen. Now, the last question then is, if you have, as it says in the contraindications here, an active cancer, right, what will happen if you repeatedly put PDGF on that? So FDA, in the course of getting our FDA approvals for our other products, made us and create sarcomas in animals, in rats actually, right? Okay. And then made us give like 1,000 times the dose of concentration of PDGF that you would ever give in a human every day intravenously in these animals to see if we could stimulate the growth of that cancer. And the answer was, you could not. Okay. Even giving 1,000 times more PDGF than you would ever give in an aesthetic procedure, intravenously, every day, to animals with an existing cancer, a sarcoma, right? You still couldn't stimulate the growth of that tumor. And again, there's a lot of reasons behind that. It's not like, it's, if you understand the science, you understand why, but it kind of goes back to the comment I made earlier about, hey, there's a limited number of receptors for the growth factors on the surface of the cell.
Right, of course.
So it doesn't matter if you're giving it every day, 1,000 times the concentration. You only got so many receptors that you can saturate, and once those receptors are saturated, you're not going to get any more stimulation. So you're not going to stimulate the growth of that cancer. Okay, let's go on.
All right.
Okay, so now how can I use PDGF to improve my clinical results? This is, I'm going to go through a bunch of before and after cases now. You guys are the experts here. I am not. I'm the scientist, right? I'm a cell biologist. I understand the biology and the physiology and all of that. But you guys are the experts when it comes to the aesthetic providers. So I'm going to run through these cases pretty quickly because, frankly, I think you know them and will recognize and appreciate them far quicker and better than I do. So one of the first things you may notice when you apply Ariessence post-microneedling or during microneedling, if you use it as the glide, is a reduction in the redness and the heat. It takes away a lot of that heat and burning and redness in your patients. And this is, it may not always in every case happen within an hour, like in this young lady, but it will happen quicker than if you did not use the product. Next. This is from a study that we're about to publish with Michael Gold. It should be out here in the next month or two and will be presented in a couple of weeks at the SCALE conference. So this was using RF microneedling with and without PDGF as a randomized controlled trial. This is looking at baseline in 30 days, and this patient that did receive the PDGF. Next. And here's a close-up standardized Canfield Visia photography. Single application of the PDGF. Next. Another case from that same study, 0 and 30 days with PDGF and RF microneedling. Next. And the close-up photos, again, the Visia system. Next. This was a control from that same study without the art that got the RF microneedling without the PDGF. Next. This is looking at just the global aesthetic assessment scores, okay, that were significantly improved in the PDGF groups. Next. This was looking at the Visia scores, the Canfield image analysis system. Showed the significant improvements in all these different parameters compared to the standard of care in the study, the control in the study. Next. Okay, moving on then to looking at, and again, this is a case with PDGF used with microneedling, 1 treatment and then 2 treatments. Next. Here's a montage of a bunch of different cases before and after. So the case on the left, the 2 photos on the left, microneedling and CO2 with at day immediately post and then day 6 with PDGF, Ariessence. Center 2 photos are immediately post in 5 days after treatment with microneedling, CO2, and Sculptra. Next, and then the right-hand image, pair of photos, is immediately post in 6 days after with microneedling, CO2, and Ariessence. Next. Okay, another case, PDGF applied immediately post-microneedling. I think, again, you guys can assess that far better than I can, but you can see the before and afters from the different views. Next. This was a Halo BBL case where they applied the pure PDGF topically. You can see the before treatment and then 72 hours post. Next. And then this is the complete sort of sequence of those photos, the before, which you saw previously, the immediately post, the 2-hour post, and then the 72-hour post. This was with using PDGF post-Ellacor, immediately post-procedure in 72 hours. Provider quote was, anyone who's doing coring should absolutely be using PDGF. Next. Okay, PDGF post ultra clear laser. You guys know ultra clear can be pretty aggressive, right? Can take easily sometimes 8 to 10 days or longer to really fully recover. This patient was, as they said, back to work tomorrow on day 4. Here's a deep plane facelift, bluff, profractional laser, and laser peel immediately post 40 with PDGF, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. 48 hours, 5 days, 9 days, and just click it again. So the comment from this plastic surgeon was the results at 12 days are what we typically see in about 3 to 4 weeks in the past without the use of the PDGF. Now, in these cases like this, and a couple others you'll see in it coming up, right? The PDGF was mixed with the HA, applied topically immediately post-procedure, all 2 mLs, cover the whole face, and then another 2 ml treatment was mixed up and sent home with the patient to apply 2 to 3 times a day for about 3 days afterwards.
Perfect.
So just know that. Okay, next slide. So here's a split face study. Same patient, one side treated with the Ariessence, the other side treated was a control standard of care Aquaphor emollient. You can clearly see the difference in healing from 1 week at 1 week post-op in that preauricular incision line. Wow. Next. And the 2-week photos from that same patient, you can see in the PDGF treated side, basically almost no scarring compared to clearly a residual incision line and scar in the control side. Next. This is another example. This is another facelift case. Had a chronic wound on the neck that the plastic surgeon couldn't get to heal. They started applying Ariessence and again sent some home with the patient. And it completely healed. Next. This is a really interesting case. So this lady had a facelift, had a preauricular incision scar for like 2 years, didn't like the scar, went in to have it lasered. So they lasered the scar, the preauricular scar, and then they couldn't get the laser wound to heal. So they tried kind of everything for 8 weeks. 2 months, still couldn't get it to heal. They put the patient on the Ariessence, the pure PDGF, mixed with the HA, applied 2 to 3 times a day, and then you can see in 7 days that wound was really well on its way to healing, and in 11 days it was completely healed.
Awesome. Yeah, we love Joe Neon too.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. A Mohs case. Okay, now this gets back to something we were talking about earlier. Okay, why do you do Mohs? This patient had a skin cancer, right? So the dermatologist, I guess in this case, excised it, did a Mohs surgery, applied Ariessence immediately. We actually went to the FDA and said, hey, do we need an IND? Actually, we didn't. We should have done that. What we did was we actually filed an IND for a clinical study to treat Mohs patients immediately after cancer excision. FDA came back to us and said, this product is already approved for treatment of skin wounds. You don't need an IND. Just go forward. If it's a study, you got controls and so forth, you have to get your IRB approval, but you need informed consent, and all that standard stuff for a clinical trial, but you don't need an IND. That was really amazing. And I think it's just a testament for how safe this product really is, because again, you're putting this, in this case, the Ariessence right on immediately after a cancer excision in the skin.
Right.
Next. Hair case, Julie Bass Kaplan. Sounds like you're going to be with her, shortly. So you can ask her about this. This is her son following Tixel with topical applications, PDGF. Next. Rod Rurik, I'm sure name familiar with many of you. One of the best plastic surgeons in the country, maybe the world. Huge fan of Ariessence and PDGF. You can see his quote here. It's a game changer. Brian Beisman here in Nashville, only product I have encountered in the past 30 years that really has been a game changer from a wound healing perspective, decreasing time to reepithelialization by up to 50%. a grateful patient quote there sent to Julie Bass Kaplan. A quick note to let you know I have seen more healing and recovery in the past 48 hours than I had in the past 5 weeks. It's really unbelievable. The borders, this patient had a severe laser burn in their connective tissue, their dermal layer. And she said the borders of the cutout area are less rigid, they're much smoother, erythema is far reduced, and the pain relief discomfort is so improved. Next. This is a quick summary of kind of what I've told you, answers to your questions. What exactly are growth factors, and are they all basically the same? They're natural proteins. They're not the same. They do different things. Only PDGF is FDA approved. What is a recombinant PDGF? What does the word recombinant mean? How is it different from PRP? Exosomes, hopefully you remember I went through all of that. PDGF is made the same way insulin is. Consists of only one human component, which is the PDGF. It's highly concentrated, and it is the direct stimulator of cell growth, not the grocery bag. How does PDGF work? Why would I consider using it in my clinic? It stimulates proliferation and recruitment, as you saw in that video under the microscope, of skin fibroblasts and stem cells, stimulates neovascularization, better oxygen perfusion in the skin, stimulates collagen and other extracellular matrix production. Next. Is pure PDGF FDA approved? Yep, 4 times, 3 different indications, 5 million patients treated. Is it safe? Are any growth factors or exosomes safe? Well, at least with pure PDGF, you've got one that's been FDA approved. You've got PDGF that's been applied to 5 million patients. It's been surgically implanted. It's been injected. No other exosomes can say that. Definitely consult with your, IFUs for additional information on those other products, for sure, like you always should. Can PDGF improve my clinical results? Well, I believe so, but you saw some of the cases, you've talked to your peers, so you be the judge. Next. Thank you all very much.
Awesome.
Thank you. You brought up, Dr. Lynch, you brought up a question. I'm brainstorming here. Okay, so I have the box of the Ariessence. I don't know if you can see me, but this, as it stands, is not FDA approved. It's for topical use only, and you pretty much made that very clear to us. When I open it, the syringes say Ariessence Pure PDGF for topical use only. Okay, but you were mentioning that in here is the exact same product that is the PDGF that is FDA approved under different trade names, right? Exact same product.
The exact same.
So
can we buy the other product
I was going to say,
inject it?
or I was just going to say, it says Ariessence. Can you not take the Ariessence label off and just put PDGF? And then we could legally inject it.
No,
you could, right? It's just a label.
It's the label that's kind of giving us issues that okay, we can't inject this.
I mean, by the law, technically FDA-wise, because they label this as topical,
Right.
But he has the one that they injected mucosally for gingival.
So we could buy that?
So you can buy that and inject that. Because that's also the same exact, he said it's the same exact as 0.5 millimeter at the 300 microgram.
Could we do that to inject it?
If you would like, you could absolutely.
It's
totally up to you as the healthcare professional, right? So I have to be careful. So I'm a number one, first and foremost. I consider myself a scientist. I hope that's become clear in today's presentation.
Yes, thank you.
I love the science. I love the biology. I spent 30 years in regenerative medicine. I want to talk about all of that, but because of my affiliation with Lynch Regenerative Medicine, LRM Aesthetics, right, I have to be careful not to promote off-label use, and I don't ever want to do that, and I hope I haven't done that tonight. I hope I've been very clear.
We're asking. You're not promoting.
We're asking because we have to.
We're asking for a friend.
All these exosomes, there's polynucleotides, there's all these skin boosters that are coming in as FDA cleared for topical, which confuses a lot of people. Topical is topical. Ariessence as a brand falls under that.
Correct.
However, you have, as you expressed, 4 different FDA approved ones that are injectable. And that's where I would probably say where you guys is out there in the practitioner world, if you're going to, in my book as a medical practitioner, if I were to inject anything, I would use those that are FDA approved for injection to inject as far as considered off-label. Like when we do inject fillers,
True.
It's approved for a lip, but I'm using it all over the face. That's considered off-label because I'm not just injecting that on the lip. The problem is that you guys have to realize Ariessence as its own thing, because it says topical, should only be used as topical. But the fact that they have it as a injectable form to me means that I can inject it. I just won't inject this under this brand name.
Got it.
Is
Got
really
it.
what it is.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and let me just add, because look, we have a lot of providers that are injecting the PDGF out of Ariessence, right?
Yes.
And I'm not promoting that in any way.
Right.
However, I want to be fair to those providers as well, right? Because they have talked to their medical malpractice people, they have talked to their attorneys, and their med mals and their attorneys have said, no problem. So, you've got to have your informed consent,
So how
and
do you-
you've got to do it correctly. But, there's great providers who are
Right.
amazing.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely.
Oh,
I
yeah,
understand.
that are doing it.
I'm just trying to make sure that everybody out there is as safe as possible, because people are injecting other things out there that have only FDA clearances for topical, and
But they're not. There's no FDA.
But there's no FDA. But the thing
they're
is,
just topical.
but remember, this is a brand name. The PDGF, because they put is only for topical on
Right,
here.
right.
You probably can't inject this
Right,
as topical.
no.
I mean, if we injected Botox from Canada, it's Canadian Botox. It's considered illegal to inject
Right.
it in the U.S. So it's the same exact freaking product
in a different bottle.
in a different packaging.
Right.
And FDA still considers that as an illegal product to inject a Canadian or Mexican Botox here.
Right.
So just on that
it's
legal
just like,
sense.
look, it's a confusing area, right?
Yeah.
Because,
And we
I
just
hate
want
even
people to
venture
be
into
safe
this
about it. The
because-
fact that you have an injectable FDA product, I would inject that one if I'm going to inject, because I'm going to inject that off label.
Right.
I can inject that because you have the
Yeah.
FDA approval for injection.
on the other hand, Gideon, right? You have people, including our president and our congressmen, who are promoting importing drugs from Mexico and Canada that may or may not be the same as here, and they're doing it all the time. So it's not a black and white issue.
It's never a black and white issue. The problem is the law is the law, and whether whoever says it out there is just rhetoric, when you're the one that gets put on the spot by the Department of Consumer Affairs or whoever it is, they could care less, because they're going to throw the book at you.
Yeah,
and
they
that's
would
the
probably
sad
look
part.
for-
Like
yeah.
especially the nursing boards in California are so against the nurses. It's kind of sad. They're not there to protect them, and this is more about protecting the people that are out there that are wanting to inject this. I think you just need to delineate. There's the FDA injectable form that I think if you really want to cover yourself, cover your ass, you use the injectable form that's FDA approved for injection. If you're going to use Ariessence as a brand, you probably should stick with it as a topical on that aspect of it.
And the slides you showed us, the
They're
befores and
great. I
afters,
love it.
that are used with microneedling, this topical use, the results were beautiful.
Yeah, it's
they were
great.
they were outstanding. So that's
Yes,
impressive.
if you noticed, every case that I showed you was a topical
Yes,
application.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So there's
Yeah.
great aspects to both aspects of it. I think I'm excited to play with PDGF. So ultimately, if they want to reach out and start ordering any of this stuff, how do they do that for those that are out there?
Believe it or not, I'm going to pass on that
Okay.
question, because I want to keep this very,
Okay. So can
They
what?
can reach out to us at the Aesthetic
don't say
Immersion.
anything.
We'll figure it out. for them.
www.ariessence.com. Dr. Lynch didn't say that. I said so. Or look for your Ariessence rep in your area. This is it. This is the box. It comes with 5 syringes, and then the hyaluronic acid. This is what you mix it with to put on topically. It's a non-cross-linked hyaluronic acid. So there you go. And then these syringes are labeled Ariessence Pure PDGF. for topical use only. So that's how they're labeled. But yeah, this is the miracle stuff. So there you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Dr. Lynch didn't say it. I said that.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lynch. I think they want you to stay on for the next mentorship call. We're going to close it off, so don't go away.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Dr. Lynch, thank you so much.
Sorry we went over, but hopefully you guys learned a lot. We'll see you at the next episode, June 10th, with Julie Bass-Kaplan and Dr. Julie Woodward. Same time, same channel. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.